Rebirth 90+ female lead without CP+scumbag+career development+crazy cheating to serve the motherland. In an accident, Meng Suisui traveled to a notorious peasant woman in the 1990s. Before crossing over, she was physically abused by her cheating husband, bullied by her mother-in-law, beaten and scolded by her little son, resented by her daughters, and disliked by the whole village. After she came, she divorced, fought back, and became rich. Resolutely give up custody of my youngest son and take my 6 daughters to eat and drink spicy food. Later, did my ex-husband regret seeking reconciliation? Our mother-in-law trying to curry favor with her? Does the youngest son know he's wrong? One word, get lost. Later on, she became a business genius, the mother of 6 big shots, and a living Bodhisattva who saved lives. Is the host requesting an interview? Keep a low profile. Are the 4 heavenly kings treating you to a meal? I don't want to go. Provincial Governor's Bureau seeking appreciation. Busy buying rockets, no time. Please don't get involved, I just want to make money to serve my country. Chapter 1. Damn it. The female CEO actually dressed up as a mother of 7 children. You are listening at novel full.audio. Mom, please don't leave us alone. Mom, we were wrong. A heart-wrenching cry could be heard in my ears. Meng Suisui opened her eyes and saw a group of children with bruises and swollen faces gathered around her, crying and calling her mother. What is the situation? Where did she have a child who was unmarried and childless? Suddenly, some memories that did not belong to her were forcibly infused into her head. Meng Suisui was so surprised that she sat up directly from the con. I didn't expect such a thing as time travel to happen to her. She is 35 years old, unmarried and childless. She was a wealthy 6th generation who achieved financial freedom from birth, and now she has traveled to a foolish and unreasonable peasant woman in the 1990s. My original mother was also 35 years old. She got married hastily because she got pregnant before getting married. After marriage, she gave birth to 6 daughters in order to have a son. It wasn't until her 7th child gave birth that she was willing to give up. After learning these things, Meng Suisui couldn't help but sigh. In any era, there were people who valued sons over daughters, and even those born into a wealthy family had suffered unfair treatment. From a young age, she knew that no matter how excellent she was, everything in the family would eventually be inherited by her eldest son. However, these girls in front of her are clearly much more miserable than her. Although she cannot become the heir of the family, at least she can live a lifetime of luxury, but these children even have problems getting enough to eat and wear warm clothes. Mom, you finally woke up. Mom has been sleeping since last night until now, and we almost thought Mom. Li-D, go and pour a glass of water for your mother quickly. Upon hearing the name Li-D, Meng Suisui rolled her eyes in silence. You can tell from the name how much the original person valued men over women. Mother, drink water. 3rd daughter Lu Lady handed over the water glass, and Meng Suisui was about to reach out to pick it up when she noticed that the 3rd daughter instinctively avoided it. This is a subconscious reaction often left behind by being beaten, which looks heartbreaking. A mother who values boys over girls on the street, these children are really pitiful. Although she had never had a child, at this moment, she couldn't help but feel a softness that belonged exclusively to her mother. She took a sip of water and felt much more comfortable in her throat. Laughter came from outside. She turned her head to look. Qibao and his friends were chasing and playing in the yard, running and giggling happily. Watching this scene, Meng Suisui felt unworthy for her original self. The son she gave birth to at the cost of her life, but when she was about to die, she still had the intention to play with people. Every time Genshin Impact was beaten by her husband, the 6 daughters who were not loved by Genshin Impact would protect their mother. However, this little son who received all Genshin Impact's favor always watched coldly, as if Genshin Impact had nothing to do with him. The crow still knows how to breastfeed, and this child's behavior can no longer be described as cold-blooded. Meng Suisui withdrew her gaze and said to her 6 daughters in front of the Kong, whose tears had not yet dried. I'm planning to divorce your father, what are your plans? Before the words fell, all 6 daughters looked incredulous. Their mother has always talked about 3 obediences and 4 virtues every day. She almost got beaten to death by her father several times before and never thought about getting divorced. What's going on today? The daughters looked at each other, and the boss tentatively asked. Mom. Do you really want to divorce Dad? Well, if nothing unexpected happens, I'll go talk to your father tonight about the divorce. Marriage must be divorced, Meng Suisui doesn't want to have long dreams at night. After speaking, she thought of the situation in her original family and sighed. Forget it, what you said doesn't count either. I'll talk to your dad first before making plans. She changed her tone and covered her withered stomach, asking, do we have anything else to eat at home? The eldest daughter took back half of the nest from the kitchen and handed it to her. Wawadu is made by grinding corn into flour, as it lacks refined flour and becomes very hard when cooled. Meng Suisui went crazy with hunger and took a bite from Wawadu. What is this? It's so choking. She was pounding her chest in pain when the 3rd daughter handed over the water. Meng Suisui quickly took a big sip and looked up to see her daughter swallowing water at the nest in her hand. You didn't eat? Meng Suisui asked. The eldest daughter nodded and said, Mom, when Dad left, he carried away all the remaining food in the house. The only half of the nest was secretly hidden by me for 7 treasures. After listening for a moment, she couldn't help but feel angry. This person who killed thousands of dollars just went out and messed with others, and surprisingly took all the food from home. After years of famine, there was not much food in the family, and that beast was going to starve her and her children to death. Meng Suisui stuffed half of her nest into her eldest daughter's hand. This thing is too choking, I don't like to eat it. Okay mother, then I'll keep it for Qibao. Upon hearing her eldest daughter's words, Meng Suisui couldn't help but frown. She turned her head to look at her chubby little son who was playing wildly outside, and then looked at her black, thin, and injured daughters in front of her, making a sound. You don't need to give it to him, the 6 of you share it. As soon as these words were spoken, the daughters once again showed an incredible expression. Previously, everything delicious in the family was tightly given to the youngest son, and dry food like this never had a share for the daughters. Meng Suisui didn't get used to her sudden attitude change until her daughters learned to remember the appearance of her body and said with a stern face. Are you all skin loose? Didn't you hear me talking? Hurry up and eat separately. The daughters turned pale with fear upon hearing this. Divide, let's divide now. Mom, don't be angry. The eldest daughter was laying a nest for the other daughters in the house, and Meng Suisui secretly sighed and prepared to visit the village chief's house. As I passed by the kitchen, a sound suddenly rang out in my head. Ding, half a pound of salt was found at 0.25 meters. At the same time, a transparent screen appeared in front of her. The screen displays a top view of the kitchen, with a red arrow pointing to the salt jar next to the stove. She picked up the salt jar in confusion when the electronic sound in her head rang again. Half a kilogram of high-quality salt, priced at 1 yuan. May I ask if it is for sale? There are 2 options on the screen, and she chose yes. In an instant, the table salt in the salt jar disappeared, leaving only an empty jar and a 1 yuan banknote in her hand. Oh my God, this is too incredible. Now in the market, 1 cent can buy 1 pound of salt, and 1 yuan can buy 10 pounds of salt. She's making a lot of money. She almost jumped up with excitement. At this moment, the electronic prompt sound in my head rang again. Ding, 1 pound of white sugar was found at 0.25 meters. 1 kilogram of high-quality white sugar, priced at 10 yuan. Is it for sale? Oh my goodness, sugar is so much more expensive than salt. She didn't want to just click yes. In the blink of an eye, 10 yuan was held in her palm, and she suddenly dropped her chin. Wang Hai from the east end of the village went to the black mine to dig coal for his mother's treatment. It was a desperate job, earning only 2 yuan a day. Her half-kilogram of sugar was exchanged for 5 days' salary, which was simply unbelievable. After tasting the sweetness, Meng Suisui still wanted to sell something, but she didn't expect the system to prompt her. Ding, the 2 trading limits for today have been used up. If you want to trade, please try again tomorrow. Meng Suisui was a bit disappointed, but when she thought about whether she could continue trading tomorrow, her mood improved again. Mom, why are you holding the sugar jar? The voice of the eldest daughter suddenly appeared behind her, and Meng Suisui was frightened and quickly stuffed the money into her pocket. Oh no, she sold both salt and sugar. What if her daughters find out? She was just thinking when her third daughter, who rushed over at the sound, exclaimed in surprise. Mom, why is our salt jar empty? Chapter 2. Determination of Divorce. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. The eldest daughter took the sugar jar and glanced at it, frowning. The sugar is also missing, she said, seeing the probing eyes of her daughters. Meng Suisui's spirit flashed and she patted her head and said. It should have been taken away by your father when he took the food. The eldest daughter scratched her head and said, oh. But at that time, she was at home all the time and didn't remember her father bringing salt and sugar. Fortunately, there was still half a bag of salt left in the cabinet before, so there was no shortage of salt to eat. Meng Suisui saw her eldest daughter's confusion and coughed to conceal her embarrassment. Then, with a stern face, she took out her mother's dignity and said angrily. Okay, don't make a fuss about it. I'll go out and do what you guys should do. Hurrying out of the sight of her daughters and onto the main road, Meng Suisui finally breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that she can't sell things from the family like this in the future. This time, she can still say that it was taken by the child's father, but next time it may not be the case. Barking from hunger, she struggled to walk to the village chief's house with money. As soon as she arrived at the door, the village chief's dog barked at her. She dared not enter the courtyard, but fortunately, the village chief's wife quickly opened the door and came out. Daughter-in-law of the pillar, why did you come? The village chief's daughter-in-law spoke ill of herself, clearly not treating her well. As she approached and saw the wound on her face, she frowned and asked, did you get beaten again? Before she could answer, the village chief's wife opened the door and said, if you have anything to say, go in and say it. Your uncle is inside the house. The village is not big, and almost every family can climb up to some relatives. According to seniority, she has to call the village chief Uncle Sheng. Meng Suisui followed the village chief's wife into the house, gave an explanation, and then turned around and left. Uncle Wang, I want to divorce Lu Zhu. A hint of surprise flashed in the eyes of village chief Wang Haijiang. They all live in the same village, and everyone knows a little about who and what they are. As village officials, they have visited Meng Suisui more than once to ask if they need help from the village to make decisions, and even helped report to the police. However, Meng Suisui said they were meddling in their own affairs, not only defending Lu Zhu every word, but also scolding them head-on. If the parties involved are willing to fight and suffer one by one, what can they do if they can't get angry? Now it is such a foolish person who wants to divorce, and the sun is shining in the west. Wang Haijiang picked up the teapot and took a sip, then raised his eyebrows and asked. Have you really made up your mind? Are you really leaving? Meng Suisui's eyes were firm. Yes, could you please have the village officials present tonight to witness and clarify the family's situation, so as not to let the old Lu family back down and refuse to admit it. In fact, they don't have much family property to share, it's nothing more than dilapidated thatched houses, land, and 7 children. Her original husband and mother-in-law's family were all unreasonable. After the divorce, she and her child had to live in this village. If they wanted a peaceful life, they had to divide the family clearly during the divorce. After finishing the business, Meng Suisui spoke awkwardly before leaving. Uncle Wang, all the remaining grain in my house was taken by Lu Zhu today. Can I exchange some money with your family for some grain? Upon hearing these words, Wang Haijiang instinctively looked at his wife. The village chief's wife took a step forward and said, "Our family doesn't have much food either. As you know, no one's family is well off these days." This can be considered a gentle rejection of Meng Suisui. Meng Suisui can understand why the village chief's wife doesn't help her. My previous reputation in the village was really bad. After getting married, not only did I plan with my mother-in-law's family, but I also hurt the hearts of many kind-hearted people to protect my husband and mother-in-law's family from any harm. But she is really too hungry now, and it's not realistic for her to go to town in this physical condition. She can't think of anyone else to help her except for the village chief's family. Uncle Wang, Aunt Wang, some of the things I did before were wrong, and I really can't do anything about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have spoken to you like this. Meng Suisui said, putting $1 in her hand into the hands of the village chief's wife. Aunt Wang, please have mercy on my 7 children and sell me some food. The village chief's wife had a sharp tongue and a heart full of tofu. She glanced at the money in her hand and snorted coldly. Come with me. Meng Suisui was overjoyed and quickly followed her to the kitchen. The village chief's wife opened the bag containing the corn stubble, hesitated for a moment, and turned her head to ask her. Besides the corn stubble, we also have some refined noodles at home. Your uncle got them from participating in a quiz competition in town last week. If you want them, I can also give you some. Yes, Meng Suisui said without hesitation. These days, the villagers can only eat rice and white noodles during the Chinese New Year. Unexpectedly, the village head's family has white noodles, which is a surprising joy for her. When she thought of the choking mess she had just eaten, she felt it was hard to say for a moment. It's natural to eat white noodles. The village chief's wife said, Okay, how much do you want each of the corn stubble and white flour sold in the town for 1.51 jin and 20.1 jin respectively? Meng Suisui said, then we need 3 pounds of white flour, 2 pounds of corn stubble, and the remaining 10 cents. Uncle will also need to spend money on the transportation expenses to get back from the town. After listening, the village chief's wife couldn't help but be taken aback and looked at Meng Suisui in surprise. When did Meng Suisui become so reasonable? It doesn't seem like something was said from Meng Suisui's mouth. She turned around to weigh the grain for Meng Suisui, thinking to herself that this little daughter-in-law really can't make a living. Her family has run out of food and she still wants to enjoy it. If she were to have corn stubble, she would definitely want to eat more meals. Meng Suisui took the grain and prepared to go home. Before leaving, the village chief's wife stuffed 2 more eggs for her. I'll give you 2 eggs if you have 1 cent left. Don't say I'm taking advantage of you when you go out. She was originally a person who was calculating and talkative, and the village chief's wife was obviously afraid that Meng Suisui would ruin the reputation of the village chief's family by saying so. Meng Suisui didn't make much excuses either. The children at home hadn't tasted the taste of eggs for a long time, so they took it back to give the children a try. She smiled and accepted it, saying, "Thank you, Auntie." As soon as she said this, she clearly felt the expression of the village chief's wife uncomfortable. The other person coughed lightly and said, "All right, go back and cook for the children. Those girls in your house are all thin as bamboo poles." After leaving the village chief's house, Meng Suisui quickly returned home and handed over the grain to her eldest daughter. The eldest daughter's eyes lit up and she said, "Mom, where did this grain come from?" The village is surrounded by dry fields, with corn and soybeans as the main crops. After the autumn harvest, each family leaves some corn to be crushed into corn husks and kept for consumption. Therefore, The eldest daughter is not surprised to see the corn husks in the bag. The eldest daughter opened another bag and exclaimed in surprise when she saw the white face inside. Is this white face? There's actually white face. The eldest daughter was visibly excited, but for almost an instant, her gaze dimmed again. Can't it be my mother stealing from my grandmother's house again? Meng Suisui frowned subconsciously upon hearing this, and then couldn't help but sigh. Alas, it's all due to the fact that the original person is too inhumane, leaving a broken impression on the children. She pressed her fist against her stomach, feeling weak from hunger, and explained, I bought these for 1 yuan at the village chief's grandfather's house. I'll have noodles for lunch. Let's see how to make them. This didn't make the eldest daughter happy, but instead her eyebrows furrowed tighter and tighter. All the money was taken by my father, and my family has run out of money for a long time. The eldest daughter asked, where did mom get the money? Chapter 3. Is mother crazy? This is White Face. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. Meng Suisui knew that her eldest daughter must have thought that she had stolen money from her mother's house, or that she was rolling around at her mother's house to come. I was afraid your father would steal it before, so I secretly hid it. She was afraid that her eldest daughter would delve deeper and deliberately scold in a cold voice, why is there so much nonsense today? Hurry up and cook. The eldest daughter frowned slightly and took the food to the kitchen. In the kitchen, the eldest daughter put a small bowl of noodles in a basin. Such good white noodles definitely don't have the portion they need to eat. Dad shouldn't come back today, so she just needs to make the portions for her mother and brother. She was about to add water when Meng Suisui's voice suddenly appeared behind her. Put more, it's too little to eat. After she finished speaking, she saw her eldest daughter fill another half of the bowl and put it in. Meng Suisui shook her head helplessly and walked up to pour half of it directly into the bowl. Mom, is this crazy? This is White Face. The eldest daughter exclaimed, Mother, what are you doing? Meng Suisui was really powerless to speak. She waved her hand and said, make all of this and eat the eggs. When it's cooked, call me. Returning to the room and lying on the kong, Meng Suisui touched the 10 yuan in her pocket. She said she secretly hid $1, which may be believed by someone, but $10 is too much. In the future, she will have to use the mall for transactions, and the money will definitely increase. She needs to find a way to clear the way for the money earned in the space mall. By the way, she hasn't studied this space mall thoroughly yet, and now she happens to be available. But she doesn't know what the opening conditions are for this space mall. She was thinking when mechanical sounds rang out in her head. Ding, the space mall has opened. Meng Suisui's face was full of disbelief. Isn't this amazing? She can open it if she wants. 3 options appear on the screen. 1. Ancient and modern shopping malls. 2. It is currently not available for sale. 3. Yin-Yang Shopping Mall. It is obvious that the ancient and modern shopping mall is a trading mall that connects ancient and modern times. It can sell the things owned by this society to ancient times, or buy some ancient things in the mall to sell to modern times. Those ancient calligraphy, paintings, and utensils are all antiques in modern times. With this shopping mall, it's difficult for her not to make a fortune. The current Shangqing should be a trading mall that connects the present and the future. At that time, it can buy some advanced technology and weapons from the future, and China's economy and military will be ahead of other countries. It's up to those foreigners to dare not be arrogant. As for this Yin-Yang shopping mall, based on its literal meaning, it can be inferred that it is a trading mall connecting the underworld and the Yang world. She couldn't think of any transactions with the underworld for the time being. Meng Suisui clicked one by one and found that only ancient and modern shopping malls can be opened, while the other 2 have a small lock sign behind them that cannot be opened temporarily. The interface of this ancient and modern shopping mall is similar to that of a certain treasure in the past. She is now at the first level and has unlocked the basic livelihood section. After clicking on it, it is filled with some common daily necessities and primary agricultural products, such as rice, noodles, oil, vegetables, fruits, etc. If you want to trade more things, you need to upgrade. The higher the level, the more things you trade. The condition for upgrading to second level is to complete 60 transactions and spend 1,000 yuan. Now we can only trade twice a day, and it takes at least 30 days to make up for 60 trades. Moreover, we still need to save enough money to upgrade. With these thoughts in mind, Meng Suisui already had a preliminary plan. Although it was not easy for ordinary people to earn 1,000 yuan in this era, she was a small boss who had been influenced by her family since childhood and invested and started a company on her own as an adult. In the 1990s, when she became wealthy, she had the confidence to become the wealthy generation. She has been from a high starting point since birth and is often said to have such good conditions and resources that even a pig can become a big boss. Now that she is starting from scratch, it feels a bit exciting to think about it. In the kitchen, the eldest daughter Lu Xiaodi was stir-frying eggs while swallowing saliva. The taste of eggs is so fragrant, not to mention eating them, I haven't even smelled them for a long time. She greedily took a few deep breaths, then couldn't help but sigh. The food that my mother distributes to their daughters every day is already limited, and she is the eldest daughter in the family. She often looks down on her younger sister and shares her little food with her sisters. I really don't know when this day will come to an end. If it weren't for the fact that my sisters still need her, she would have jumped into the river long ago to end herself. Not long after, Meng Suisui's door was knocked on. "Mom, the food is ready and you can eat it now." Meng Suisui sat up suddenly. After a while of dizziness, she went to the kitchen and saw her eldest daughter lift the lid of the pot. The steaming big steamed buns and white flour mantou were exposed. Surprisingly, steamed buns are so fragrant. "What kind of filling is this bun?" Meng Suisui asked. "Chives and eggs filling, Mom, please try it." The eldest daughter put a bun in a bowl and handed it to her, then continued to bend down to pick up the buns one by one onto the plate. Meng Suisui was already starving, and she quickly sat down. Just as she wanted to eat, something suddenly came to her mind. What about others? They were called by their grandmother to help with the work. The old lady couldn't remember a few children every time she tried to share delicious food, and when she needed to find someone to work, she couldn't keep up. Meng Suisui put down the bowl and let out a loud snap. The eldest daughter was immediately frightened and trembled. Meng Suisui ordered, "Boss, go to Grandma's house now and ask them to come home for dinner. Just say." The eldest daughter looked surprised after listening. "My mother has always been most afraid of her grandmother's anger, obeying her grandmother's orders, and never felt sorry for her sisters. Even if my grandmother beat them in front of my mother would not protect them, but even beat them together with my grandmother. Mom, is this a conversion today?" Although she didn't understand, she didn't dare to question her mother's decision and quickly lifted her legs to rush to her grandmother's house. Grandma's house is not far from her. When Lu Xiaodi arrived at Grandma's house, she saw 5 younger sisters each with a basket in front of them, rubbing corn with their heads down, while the 7th younger brother squatted in the shade playing with sand. Old Mrs. Lu saw her coming and immediately greeted her with a smile on her face. "De Bao is here. Please sit down and help your grandmother with her work. When I was a child, my grandmother knew that my De Bao works fast and well." Lu Xiaodi couldn't help but sneer as she looked at the basket her grandmother had just given her in her hand. Her grandmother only affectionately called them babies when she coaxed them to work. When she was a child, she was often tricked by her grandmother, but as she grew older, she gradually understood that she either called her baby or liked her. In fact, her grandmother didn't like their family very much, and calling her baby was just hoping she could help with the work. But neither father nor mother cared about their sisters. Even if she knew what was going on in her heart, she still had to work as a cow and a horse for grandma. At this moment, Lu Xiaodi placed the basket on the ground and picked up Lao Lu's hand, saying with heartache. "Ah, it's all blistered." She looked up at old Lu angrily. "Milk, Indy's hands are like this. Do you still let her work?" Chapter 4. Mother surprisingly did not scold them. You are listening at novel full.audio. Old Mrs. Lu leaned over to take a look and said, "Oh my, you really are. You child, your hands are all worn out. Why don't you tell grandma?" Sister arrived, and Lu Yingdi felt someone supporting her. With tears in her eyes, she said, "I just told you about milk, and you said I'm delicate." Being exposed by the little girl, old Lu's face showed displeasure and she said, "You're just delicate. What's wrong with your hands being a little worn out at a young age? Who hasn't worn them out before doing farm work? Grandma, this is a way to cultivate your good qualities of hard work and endurance. If you come here, grandma will blow it on you and it won't hurt anymore." Lao Lu's words can deceive Lao Lu, but they cannot persuade Lu Xiaodi. But she knew that it was still her and her sisters who suffered after the situation escalated, so she held back her breath and spoke up. "Milk, Mom asked me to call my younger brother and sister home for dinner. Aren't you finished this job yet?" Old Lu thought to herself, there are still so many grains of corn on the ground that haven't come off. Is it difficult for her eyes to see? This granddaughter is getting more and more difficult to deceive, and she always confronts her, which annoys me to death. Old Lu glanced at her and said, "Yes, there's so much left on the ground that hasn't been done yet." Lu Xiaodi seemed to be waiting for this sentence, nodded and smiled, saying, "Well, my mother said, if we don't finish it, let our sisters finish it and have dinner at your house before returning. Grandma loves us the most and definitely won't let go of this little bit of food. We only have 7 siblings in total, and we can't eat much. Grandma, do you think so?" After listening, old lady Lu was somewhat surprised. She felt that these words didn't seem like what her eldest daughter.in.law had said. Who else can it be if it's not the eldest daughter.in.law? The granddaughter has a stubborn temper and can never lie. Who made her always want to pretend to be a good grandmother and coax her granddaughters to help her with her work, so even if she doesn't like it anymore, this tall hat is on her head and she can't take it off. But it's impossible to have 7 children eat at home. The children are growing up, and eating one meal with 7 children is enough for them to eat for 2 days. There isn't much food at home, and she can't bear to waste it like this. Your mother is right. Grandma loves you the most. Of course, she is willing to give you food, but I haven't cooked yet. If you want to eat, you'll have to wait for a while. It's already time to eat, and I see you're all hungry. Why don't you go back to eat first?" Lu Xiaodi asked, "Milk, what about the rest of your work?" Old Lu said, "Hey, I can do the rest of the work myself. You guys go back quickly." Lu Xiaodi sneered in her heart as she looked at old lady Lu, who was afraid they would stay for dinner and was in a hurry to drive them away. She beckoned her younger brothers and sisters to follow her, and saw Qibao hugging Mrs. Lu's thigh and acting coquettishly. "Grandma, I don't want to go back. I want to stay at your house." Mrs. Lu doesn't like to see others, but she treats her great-grandson well. Watching her grandson act coquettishly around her thighs softened my heart. "Okay, then you stay. Grandma will make you a delicious wild vegetable corn paste." Corn paste is a type of dough made from corn flour. In this era of scarcity, it is already very happy to have corn paste. When sisters heard that grandma was going to make corn paste for their brother, they couldn't help swallowing saliva. They also want to eat, but who makes them female dolls? No one will feel sorry for them, they have to eat everything tightly to their younger brother first. "Sister, why don't you go back and tell my mother that I won't go back these days? I want to eat corn batter at my grandmother's house." Qibao speaks very eloquently. He knows that everyone in his family dotes on him, which is why he is so proud of him. The family steamed big steamed buns and white flour mantou. If Qibao couldn't eat them, she would scold her. Lu Xiaodi resisted the urge to bring her younger brother over and beat him up, and had a good breath. Qibao, there's also delicious food at home. Follow sister back. If my grandmother knew that her house was eating steamed buns today, she would definitely go to her house to have something to eat. Then, my mother would definitely give everything to my grandmother to please her. My father has taken away all the food at home. How could there be anything delicious? I won't go back, I won't. 7 treasures spat out their tongues and provoked them, arrogantly and awkwardly. Meng Suisui was worried that old Lu might make things difficult for the children, so she thought for a moment and followed her. She was quite far away when she heard 7 treasures chirping loudly. Quickly walking in, as soon as I entered the hospital, I saw my eldest daughter pulling on Qibao's arm. Qibao punched and kicked hard to break free, and even cursed fiercely. Losing money, if you don't let go of me, I'll kill you, kill you. No, you must come back with me. One was desperately pulling, the other was desperately struggling, and a group of people were in chaos. Boss, let go of him. Meng Suisui let out a cold shout and rushed into the crowd to separate the two. Qibao saw his mother who loved him the most and cried, rushing into Meng Suisui's arms to complain. Mother, big sister hit me, sobbing. Qibao proudly thought that his mother doted on him the most and would definitely scold his sister severely. Mrs. Lu also leaned in and said, Madam, look at how you taught Zhao Di how to hit her younger brother. She didn't listen even when I asked her to stop just now. It's really outrageous. At the same time, Lu Xiaodi protected her sisters behind her, staring stubbornly at Qibao. Her iron blue face revealed her fear of Meng Suisui. Meng Suisui saw this farce in her eyes. This kid is still a playwright. If she hadn't just heard this kid scold her eldest daughter for losing money and hitting someone, she might have been deceived by her son's tears. She pushed her youngest son away and gave a cold shout, Stand up. Qibao couldn't help but be taken aback. His mother had never yelled at him before. Meng Suisui's gaze fell on her eldest daughter Lu Xiaodi and she asked, What's going on? I didn't hit him. 7 treasures won't come back with me. Whenever I get anxious, I want to catch him back. Lu Xiaodi stubbornly finished speaking, clenching her fists and waiting to be scolded. My mother has always believed only in my younger brother's words, hitting and scolding her indiscriminately. Everyone present knew Meng Suisui's temper and thought that Lu Xiaodi would inevitably scold her today. Sisters bowed their heads and waited for the coming of the storm, but they did not expect Meng Suisui's reaction was completely unexpected. If Qibao doesn't want to go back, he'll stick to him and let him stay here. You guys come with me. Meng Suisui finished speaking and turned around, leaving behind a bewildered crowd. She took a few steps and found that her daughters had not caught up yet. Her footsteps stopped and she gave a cold shout without looking back. Didn't you hear me speaking? As soon as these words were spoken, the 6 daughters quickly followed Meng Suisui. Lu Qibao looked at Meng Suisui's distant figure, then at his grandmother beside him, his face filled with disbelief. Milk, what's wrong with my mother today? She didn't even scold the older sisters. Old Mrs. Lu frowned as she watched Meng Suisui leave. Her eldest daughter Law usually kept a low voice when she saw her, but she didn't even glance at her just now and ignored her words. The dog wagging its tail at her every day suddenly stopped wagging, and Meng Suisui's sudden transformation made her a bit uncomfortable. Old Lu snorted coldly and said, Oh, who knows what kind of wind your mother suddenly has. Let's go, let's make some delicious milk for you. Chapter 5. I've never been so full before. You are listening at novel full.audio. On the way home, Meng Suisui walked ahead, with her 6 daughters far behind. Sister, it's so strange that my mother called us back before she finished her work today. My mom said she's going to divorce my dad today, and she even gave us the remaining half of the cake instead of leaving it for my younger brother like before. And just now, my mother didn't scold my elder sister. Lu Xiaodi couldn't help but mutter to herself as she listened to her sisters, because she also felt that after her mother woke up, she was different from before. Moreover, my mother knew that there were white mantou and big steamed stuffed buns at home. Even if I didn't send steamed buns to my grandmother, she didn't ask Qibao to go home to eat them. Mom, isn't it because her father pinched her head and made her lose oxygen? No matter why my mother has become like this, she doesn't believe that she will get better for no reason. If something goes wrong, there will always be demons. Maybe my mother has come up with some new way to torture them. Thinking of this, she whispered, Mom is very abnormal today. Be careful when you go back. The sisters were not stupid. Hearing what the elder sister said, they immediately became alert in their hearts. In this family, only the elder sister's kindness to them is true. Without her protection, their lives would definitely be even worse than now. No matter what the elder sister says, they will unconditionally believe and comply. At the door of the house, the steps of the sisters gradually slowed down. Just now, my mother didn't scold them. Maybe there was some big trick behind it. They were afraid of this mother from the bottom of their hearts. The fragrance of baozi overflowed from the room and was immediately smelled by the fifth person in the yard. It smells so good, what kind of flavor is it? Yeah, it smells so good. Seeing her sisters drooling, Lu Xiaodi wiped her saliva and said. My mother bought white flour and eggs today, which are the aroma of mantou and leek eggs. A few younger sisters' eyes lit up immediately upon hearing this. This taste is really delicious. I haven't eaten white noodles for several years. Me too, if only I could taste a bite of baozi, just one bite is enough. Don't dream, how could such a good thing have our share? The boss listened to his sisters and felt sour in his heart. In this family, gender is their original sin. But if given the opportunity to choose, they would definitely not choose to come to this painful world full of prejudice. Meng Suisui finished washing her hands and saw several daughters spinning around in the yard without entering the house. The original body is really a creation of evil, look at what scared the children into. She was afraid that the sudden change would scare the children too much, so she deliberately spoke ill of herself. What are you procrastinating on? Hurry up and come in to wash your hands and eat. Wash your hands and eat. Do they also have food to eat? Every time I eat, I have to wait for my parents and younger brother to finish before they can eat. Didn't you hear me? You're not hungry, are you? If you don't come in to eat, you'll be hungry. Seeing Meng Suisui angry, the daughters quickly ran into the house. Meng Suisui sat down at the table and looked at her 6 daughters standing awkwardly on the side after washing their hands, her heart suddenly softened. It seems that if she doesn't command these daughters, she won't sit down and eat well. She was already starving and had no strength, so she went out and tossed around just now. Now she can't even speak a word more. Now each of you goes to the pot to get 2 steamed buns and a mantou. If you don't want to offend me, I will sit down and eat quickly. As soon as these words were spoken, the daughters looked incredulous. The younger sisters coincidentally looked at the boss, who hesitated for a moment and nodded. With the permission of the elder sister, the younger sisters quickly went to get something to eat, and then sat down eagerly, taking the steamed buns and eating them. Lu Xiaodi looked at her sisters who were wolfing down food, then glanced at her mother, but did not see that she was angry. Only then did she carefully take a small bite of the steamed bun. Taking a sip, her eyes turned red. She actually ate a big steamed bun made of white flour, which was something she couldn't even dream of. Meng Suisui knew that her daughters were all afraid of her, so in order to let them have a good meal, she lowered her head and silently ate steamed buns. This steamed bun skin is well made and the filling is also well mixed, but there are too many chives and too few eggs, making it too spicy to eat. After eating one, she didn't want to eat the second one. She looked up and just wanted to say it wasn't delicious, so she stopped eating. However, she was surprised to find that her daughters had almost finished the 2 steamed buns in their bowls, and only 1 bite was left after eating slowly. "Don't you think the bun filling is particularly spicy?" Meng Suisui asked. The 6th daughter said with sparkling eyes, "It's not spicy, it's so delicious." The other daughters also said it's delicious. The 4th daughter's eyes turned red as she wiped away her tears and said, "I haven't eaten such delicious food for a long time. It feels like a dream." "Thank you, Mom." As soon as these words were spoken, the other daughters also lowered their heads, and in an instant, everyone's eyes turned red. Meng Suisui couldn't help but feel heartbroken as she watched this scene. She found it difficult to swallow the steamed buns, but the children were extremely satisfied and even shed tears because of it. At this moment, she suddenly felt a surge of maternal love, especially wanting to hug her poor daughters. At this moment, she felt an extra responsibility on her shoulders. She wants to earn money to help her daughters live a good life, while also healing the wounds left by her original family and accompanying them to become the people they want to be. She took a deep breath to hold back her tears and couldn't bear to scold her poor daughters anymore, speaking more gently. "All right, look at your achievements. Hurry up and have a meal. Come with me up the mountain in the afternoon after finishing. If there is food in the stomach, there is strength in the body." After finishing the meal, Meng Suisui walked towards the back mountain with her 6 daughters. She needs to go up the mountain to pick some wild vegetables and sell them in the city, otherwise she won't be able to spend the money she earns in the mall. As soon as she entered the mountain, the sound of the mall kept reminding her. "Ding, found naturally pollution.free mother.in.law ding. Ding, found natural pollution.free bitter lettuce. Ding, found natural and pollution.free ferns." Meng Suisui's mood became particularly good as she listened. There are really many good things on this mountain, and treasures are everywhere. In the era when she traveled, people had already realized the importance of food safety. Pure natural wild vegetables were very popular, and sometimes even with money, it was not necessarily possible to eat them. My family even invested heavily in building a farm for the sake of food and health, in order to eat healthily. If she puts these wild vegetables in the mall and sells them to her, she will definitely be able to sell them for a good price. She let her daughters pick wild vegetables at the foot of the mountain, while she walked deep into the mountains. People often come to the foot of the mountain, and there is not much to pick. If you want good things, you have to go deep in the mountains to try your luck. The mall reminded her of what was around her, and she saved a lot of effort by picking things. She picked some precious herbs while walking and harvested a lot along the way. During this period, she also encountered a wild chicken and a wild rabbit. She tried to chase them, but they all ended in failure. Wild chickens can fly, while wild rabbits run too fast when in danger, making it impossible for them to catch them without hunting tools. It seems that she can't eat meat today. She is feeling down when suddenly the system prompts. Chapter 6. Ding. Discovering Centennial Ginseng. You are listening at novel full.audio. Ding, discover a century-old wild ginseng tree. Upon hearing the prompt, Meng Suisui paused in her footsteps. Ginseng. In her impression, this thing seemed to be very valuable no matter which era it was in. She squatted down to dig out the ginseng and put it in the space. This ginseng tree is expected to sell for quite a bit of money. She and Lu Zhu have not divorced yet, so they cannot be treated as marital property and let Lu Zhu, that beast, take advantage of it. There were more and more things in the basket, heavy and heavy. Meng Suisui felt like she was about to walk down the mountain. On the way down the mountain, the system suddenly prompts. Ding, I found wild duck eggs. Meng Suisui stopped immediately, and then according to the system prompt, she found a nest of wild duck eggs in the grass not far away. Unexpectedly, there were 12 eggs. Great, I can improve the food tonight. There were wild duck eggs in the basket, and her footsteps down the mountain became much lighter. Meng Suisui met her daughters at the foot of the mountain, each with a small half-basket of wild vegetables and mushrooms in their backpack. It was not easy for them to harvest so much without system prompts, which showed that their daughters were very capable, and even if she was not there, they did not slack off. It was almost dinner time when I got home. Meng Suisui was injured and went for a walk on the mountain. After arriving home, she was completely exhausted. Boss, 2, 3, you 3 cook together, using wild vegetables to pair with duck eggs. You can make whatever you want. For this meal of 10 duck eggs, leave 2 to make soup tomorrow morning. The food should be enough for the 7 of us to eat. Boss, you need to have a clear idea. Old 4, Old 5, Old 6, you 3 sort the wild vegetables by category. We can't finish picking so much, and I'll take the remaining wild vegetables to the town tomorrow for sale. Meng Suisui finished arranging and went back to the room. She was too tired and fell asleep as soon as her head touched the pillow. In the kitchen, sisters gathered together and whispered. Does your mother mean that we will have our share in this dinner tonight? I'm not dreaming, right? Why did my mother suddenly treat us so well? If Qibao knew that we secretly ate white flour mantou, big steamed buns and duck eggs at home, he would surely be angry and cry. Mom is so gentle today, and she didn't scold us, which made me not used to it anymore. The younger sisters spoke happily, happiness about to overflow from their eyes, until they noticed the heavy expression on the older sister's face. Big sister, what's wrong with you? Mom is good to us, are you unhappy? Lao Lu's childish voice caught everyone's attention, and everyone looked at Big Sister together. Sister Lu Zhaodi sighed and said in a muffled voice, if I'm not mistaken, I think my mother really doesn't want to have sex with her father this time, that's why she's so abnormal. Lao Si continued, Big Sister, do you mean that your mother is in a state of disrepair? After all, she didn't think about it and decided to divorce after losing all the things in the family. The third person sighed and said, not necessarily, it could also be a conscience discovery. They felt sorry for us before and wanted to compensate us before leaving. So, this may be the last meal we had with our mother. The younger sisters immediately fell silent upon hearing this. The happy expression they had just seen because their mother was kind to them disappeared and turned into a thick sadness. They knew in their hearts that their mother didn't like them, and once their mother divorced their father, she would definitely not want them. All along, although they didn't like their mother and even harbored resentment towards her, if she could give them a bite to eat, at least they wouldn't starve to death. Their father is a drunkard, spending 8 out of 10 days with widow Wang. Every time he comes back, he not only beats and scolds them, but also plunders the family's money and food. Dad doesn't care about their life or death, and Grandma probably won't care about them. If Mom doesn't want them anymore, then they will really become homeless children. Soon after, Meng Suisui was awakened by her daughters. When she came out, she saw that the wild vegetables had been piled up and the food had already been served. When she saw 4 dishes and 1 soup on the table, she was completely stunned. Wild vegetables and duck eggs can be paired together to make so many kinds of food, and even make dumplings. Are these all made by the 3 of you? Meng Suisui asked. The third brother said quickly, it was mainly done by the eldest sister. I fought with the second sister. Without a system, Meng Suisui couldn't even distinguish what these wild vegetables were called, let alone how to use them for cooking. She was pleasantly surprised to see her daughters cooking so sumptuously, and her tone was no longer as harsh as before. What kind of filling is dumplings? And what are these dishes? Who can introduce them to me? The boss took a step forward and introduced, this is amaranth duck egg dumplings. These 4 dishes are stir-fried eggs with prickly sprouts, stir-fried eggs with celery, stir-fried mushrooms with garlic, and stir-fried mushrooms with chili peppers. This soup is also made with mushrooms. What surprised her was not only that her daughters had made such a sumptuous meal in a short time, but also that the children were so willing to use ingredients. The dishes cooked in the evening and the mantu left over at noon are enough for 7 more people. She asked her daughters to come to the table for dinner, but they were not as surprised as they were at noon and quickly sat down at the table. This is really good. She thought she was going to waste some time talking while eating. This meal was very quiet. During the meal, she clearly felt the low air pressure around her, and her daughters ate with their heads down one by one, stuffing things into their mouths like crazy, and then chewing heavily. Something's wrong. Did something happen to her while she was sleeping? She watched as her 6th daughter felt nauseous and would be stunned if she couldn't eat it anymore. Isn't it because she felt guilty and couldn't get along with herself? If there is a problem, find a way to solve it. Harming one's own body is the dumbest behavior. Meng Suisui finally couldn't help but speak out. She put down her chopsticks with a snap and scanned everyone on the table with her eyes. Who are you fighting against? What happened? Let me know first. As soon as these words were spoken, the whole audience fell silent. The daughters stopped moving and all lowered their heads without speaking. Meng Suisui patted the table and said coldly, "Lao Lu, come on." It wasn't until the 6th daughter looked up that Meng Suisui realized her eyes were swollen like lanterns, clearly indicating that she had cried before. "Mom, are you not asking us anymore?" Meng Suisui's heart tightened and she said, "Why do you ask that?" The child couldn't hide anything in their heart, and the 6th daughter sniffed and said, "My mother doesn't like us, and after divorcing my father, she will definitely abandon us. We will soon be homeless children, and maybe one day we will freeze to death and starve to death. This is the last meal we have with my mother, and it may also be the last full meal of our lives." So that's what they thought, no wonder it's like this. The suppressed sobs of the daughters came from around, and Meng Suisui raised her hand and patted the shoulder of the 6th daughter, her eyes sweeping across their faces. She asked, "Do you want to spend time with me after divorce?" When she asked this question, she couldn't help feeling a little uneasy, as her previous actions towards them could be considered abuse. She wanted her daughters to follow her and not suffer anymore. If they were still willing to follow her, she would definitely help them become the people she wanted to be. The daughters didn't expect her to ask like this, they were all stunned. Chapter 7. A Group of Silly Children. You are listening at novel full.audio. Do we want to be useful or not? The right to choose has never been in our hands. The eldest daughter spoke coldly, her voice filled with resentment. Among the shorties, if there are any other options, they will stay away from this mother who values boys over girls to the extreme. But the reality is that they have a more unreliable father and a stingy and calculating grandmother. With Meng Suisui, they can't eat enough, but they can't die of hunger. At least they can live in a dilapidated house that can shelter from the wind and rain. Because my mother has always shown a cruel and mean image of rolling knife meat in front of outsiders, and no one in the village dares to bully their sisters if they hide. At present, it may be beneficial to live with my mother alone, but if my mother doesn't want them anymore, they will really be left with nothing left for the scumbags calculated by my father and grandmother. The younger sisters are still so young. What if they are sold to blind, lame, and old bachelor as wives? Before, those people who had evil intentions didn't dare to spy on their sisters because they were afraid of being caught by their mother and being trapped in their underpants. What happened after that? Thinking of these, Lu Xiaodi hated her so much that her back teeth were almost biting apart. She hated God for letting their sisters be born in such a family, and even more hated that she was not strong enough to protect her sisters. At this moment, the mischievous old Six sensed his sister's anger, afraid that her tone would be harsh and provoke Meng Suisui. He grabbed Meng Suisui's hand and said with a horizontal heart, "We want to be with our mother. If even our mother doesn't want us anymore, there will really be no one to protect us." The other daughters were so anxious that they burst into tears when they thought about their future life without a mother. "In the future, we will all listen to our mother, please don't ignore us." Yes, in the future, we will eat less and work more. It will definitely not affect my mother's eyes. Please don't let us go. I'm still young, mother. I don't want to starve to death, sob. The daughters were speaking and crying, all voting to beg Meng Suisui for a soft heart and risking everything to fight for a chance to survive. At this moment, as the only stuffy second in the family, suddenly spoke up. This family cannot do without my elder sister, so let me make this sacrifice. She paused every word, her voice not loud but incredibly firm. Lu Xiaodi thought of something and exclaimed in surprise, Pundi, what are you doing? She instinctively covered her second sister's mouth and was avoided by the other party. The second person didn't respond, controlled the elder sister's wrist, and then raised his eyes to meet Meng Suisui's gaze. Could you please help me find someone who has given me a lot of money to marry? My face should be able to exchange a lot of money, and I will give all the money to my mother. Afterwards, I will do my best to secretly take things from my mother.in-law's house to subsidize the family. As an exchange, I hope my mother can take care of my sister's adulthood. Now is a barren year, and the temptation to sell your daughter for money is indeed great. Meng Suisui didn't expect that someone was willing to give up her happiness for her sisters. She couldn't help looking at it more. The second child is indeed good-looking, with eyes often filled with sadness like Lin Daiyu, but without losing his sharpness. He is a child with a personality. Among the original daughters, the second one is the quietest. She always works quietly, making it difficult for people to notice her. The second daughter didn't finish speaking, and the other 5 daughters panicked. No, I don't agree. If you have something to do, let's shoulder it together. Second sister, you can't do this. Meng Suisui watched as the children were crying together, but she interrupted with a loud voice. Alright, do you want to hear my thoughts before deciding whether to continue crying? Since she has confirmed the attitude of her daughters, she doesn't mind wanting to give them some truth to make them feel more comfortable. Watching her daughters silently stand in a row after hearing her words, biting their lips and sobbing low, afraid to make a sound, Meng Suisui spoke up. First of all, let me explain my attitude. I will do my best to fight for your custody. If your father disputes with me, I will give up some or even all of your property for your sake. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions on all faces were extremely exciting, and the surprise was unbelievable. Is what Mom said true? Will Mom give up her property for us? Meng Suisui nodded and said, yes, so you can temporarily put your heart in your stomach. The original family can be described as having nothing to do, she doesn't even care about such things. She just wants to divorce as soon as possible and get rid of her relationship with the scumbag and mother.in-law family, and then start a brand new life with her daughters. I saw the children pinching each other to verify if they were dreaming, and then the 6 of them hugged each other and cried bitterly. The largest one is almost 20, still crying and laughing like a child. After all, it's just a group of children. Meng Suisui looked at them and couldn't help but have moist eyes. The second person walked up to her and wiped away her tears, saying, Mom, I keep my word. If you have time, hurry up and find someone else for me. Why is this second son still thinking about this? You don't think she agreed to stay because she agreed to the deal she mentioned before, do you? Meng Suisui chuckled and said, do you know the consequences of selling yourself? Do you still want to secretly steal things from your husband's house and give them to your mother's house? If you really do that, how can you live a better life in your husband's house? Lu Pundi sniffed and said, I've thought about everything my mother said. I'm willing to do it for my sisters. The daughters noticed that they were talking and all came together. The second son didn't forget about selling himself to keep his mother. Meng Suisui looked at the children in front of her and prepared to teach them a lesson as a mother. Second, let me ask you, if I sell you and then I just take the money and run away, what can you do to me? Lu Pundi clenched her fist and, due to excitement, her chest heaved violently. She angrily said, you can't speak like that without keeping your word. Why can't I? Even if I promise you verbally and I don't admit it, what can you do? Do you have any evidence? As Meng Suisui watched the children's faces turn pale with iron, she angrily said, risking her life. Or do you think that my mother, who is sharp and harsh, and has been abusing you all year round, is someone who can keep her promise? By then, the money will already be in my hands, and you have voluntarily married. Everything has become a foregone conclusion, and your life has also been ruined. It will be too late for you to regret it again. Before the words could be finished, Lu Lady, the most restless member of the family, rushed forward to argue with Meng Suisui. How could Mom do this? This is too unreasonable. Lu Pundi grabbed third sister's wrist and gave her a wink to prevent her from speaking. She knew that what her mother said was indeed very likely to happen, but she didn't understand why she told her about it. Meng Suisui watched the scene calmly as she watched Lu Pundi sweat profusely in anger, frowning and unsure of what to do before asking. Did you understand what I said? Lu Pundi bit her pale lips and said weakly, I understand, but I can't think of any other way besides gambling that you won't run away with money. Don't you think it's ridiculous to gamble your life on someone else's conscience, and it's a person with bad deeds that you don't even believe in yourself? Meng Suisui's sarcastic tone angered everyone present. She looked at the children like crazy little bullfighters, wishing to kill her directly to vent her anger. She picked up her glass and calmly took a sip of water. Chapter 8. No rumors, I do want to divorce your son. You are listening at novel full.audio. Feeling pain is necessary for long-term memory. Meng Suisui put down her cup and said word by word. Firstly, people have ulterior motives. The only person you can trust is yourself, and only you will not betray. You need to protect the person you want to protect yourself, and don't expect or overestimate anyone, even if they are your own mother. Secondly, don't gamble with your own happiness. Life only comes once, and you should take responsibility for your own life. To protect others, you must first protect yourself. Only when you are strong can you protect the person you want to protect. Boss Lu Zhaodi couldn't bear to listen anymore and spoke out, the problem is that we're not strong now. There's nothing we can do but believe in you. Are you saying this to mock us, Mom? Meng Suisui silently endured the anger of her daughters and raised her eyebrows, saying, Let me tell you what I would do if I were you. As the eldest sister in the family, I would proactively go to the village chief to explain that my parents are not reliable. As the only adult in the family, after my parents' divorce, I would apply to raise my younger sisters and let the village chief help me strive for more benefits. 5 out of the 6 of you are minors, and you can request your parents to provide you with monthly support. When you were born, the village allocated land to each of you, and you need to take it over. Afterwards, whether you grow it yourself or rent it out, you can at least obtain some source of livelihood. The most important thing is to implement all of this on paper, in black and white, and have villagers present to testify. This way, even if both parents retract their agreement later, you can still use this agreement to seek justice from the village officials, so that there is no evidence at all. Before Meng Suisui could finish speaking, she saw her second daughter Lu Pundi turn around and walk outside. She frowned and asked, Second, what are you going to do? Lu Pundi paused and said, I'll go find the village chief. Meng Suisui frowned and asked, like I said, asking the village chief for custody of his sisters. Lu Pundi said, No, I need to sign an agreement with my mother and have the village chief grandfather serve as a witness, so my mother can't run away with money. Meng Suisui suddenly smiled and praised, Not bad, I can draw inferences from other cases. Is Mom praising her? This is the first time my mother has praised her. My mother didn't object, so I should have been willing to sign an agreement with her. However, as soon as she was about to leave, I heard my mother say, I, Meng Suisui, don't need to sell my daughter for money to survive. For a moment, everyone was stunned. The third brother was the first to react, his eyes shining brightly as he asked, what do you mean by my mother is that without the second sister getting married and exchanging money, she wouldn't want us anymore. Seeing Meng Suisui nodding, the third happily rushed forward and hugged the second. The second one was choked up and couldn't breathe. He patted the third one on the back and said in a coquettish tone, all right, if you strangle me, you won't have the second sister. After the commotion, everyone temporarily calmed down, and the look in Meng Suisui's eyes changed from anger and resentment to gratitude. The second person, Lu Pundi, took a step forward and sniffed, saying, thank you, Mom. Meng Suisui stood up and patted her shoulder comfortingly, saying, child, sacrificing oneself is not the only way to save others. Sacrificing one's own happiness to achieve one's goals is the most foolish behavior. I appreciate your bravery, but I hope you learn to love yourself more. Lu Pundi felt that today's mother was completely different from before. Not only was her words very reasonable, but she was also more gentle. After experiencing great joy and sorrow, she suddenly wanted to hug her mother. She was afraid that her mother wouldn't agree, and her voice was very quiet when she asked. Mom, can I hug you? Meng Suisui was noticeably stunned for a moment, then opened her arms and said, of course you can. Lao Lu Pundi leaned against Meng Suisui, tears streaming down her face. Before, my mother only knew how to hold my younger brother and never held her before. She only found out today that my mother's body is so soft. Meng Suisui gently patted her second daughter's back, hoping that this simple gesture could give the poor child some comfort. After holding her second daughter, she found that the other daughters were also eagerly looking at her, with a clear look of anticipation in their eyes. Meng Suisui sincerely felt sorry for her daughters, and she opened her arms intentionally with a stern expression. I'm in a good mood now. Is there anyone else I want to hug? Come on. As soon as these words were spoken, the sixth daughter rushed up first to be held, followed by the fifth, fourth, and third daughters. Today, almost the boss didn't hug her. Meng Suisui saw the boss standing on the side, clearly looking forward but unable to let go of her body. She is the oldest among the children, doing the most work and enduring the most anger. Growing up in such a family, she showed a very mature appearance at a young age. Boss, come and hug me. Meng Suisui took the initiative to speak. Boss Lu Zhaodi said, no need, I'm already an adult, not as childish as them. Meng Suisui chuckled and took a step forward to hold her eldest daughter in her arms. She said, you are all my daughters, impartial, everyone has them. Lu Zhaodi has never felt the warmth of her mother before. Suddenly, she felt a bit uncomfortable with this, her body stiffened and she didn't know how to respond, desperately suppressing the upward movement of her mouth. So this is the feeling of being held by my mother, it's really nice. If this is a dream, she hopes to stay awake for a long time. Just then, a wave of curses suddenly came from outside the door. They all live in the neighborhood, let me see who's so shameless, talking about his wife everywhere every day without doing anything serious. Old Mrs. Lu arrived first without a sound. At this moment, just as it was getting dark, Meng Suisui pushed open the door and walked out, only to see a big and a small group walking out of the shadows. It was old Lu Pozi and her original youngest son Lu Qibao. A bunch of shameless people. They have nothing to do with whether they are doing well or not, and they even spread rumors about my son and daughter.in.law getting divorced. People like you deserve to have children without any assholes, so you can do harm. They are all things that can't afford 4 dishes in their lifetime. Old Mrs. Lu would occasionally turn her head and tug at her neck while walking into the courtyard. The meaning of this is that the news of her divorce has spread to old Lu's ears, but old Lu doesn't believe that the foolish daughter.in.law who lives wholeheartedly with her eldest son can do such a thing, so she brought her grandson to her door. Old Mrs. Lu had already walked up to Meng Suisui while speaking, and angrily questioned her. Boss's wife, have you done anything immoral to offend others again? Why are the villagers spreading rumors that you want to divorce the boss? Meng Suisui met old Lu's gaze in front of her, completely losing her usual face of flattering her mother.in.law. She said coldly, "It's not a rumor, I really want to divorce your son." "What?" Old Lu exclaimed, staring incredulously. "What nonsense are you talking about? Did you let something get on your body?" The sharp sound scared away the sparrows resting on the wires, but Meng Suisui remained calm as usual. "Coincidentally, you and Qibao have arrived together, so why don't you come with me? It's also a good thing that Mrs. Lu is present. It's inevitable that when Mrs. Lu hears that they have divorced, they will come back and cause trouble. It's better to solve both of them together." Meng Suisui turned around and asked her 6 daughters to follow along, then walked directly towards the outside of the yard. Old Mrs. Lu was immediately dumbfounded. Her eldest daughter.in.law is usually the most flattering in front of her. Why is she not only ignoring her today, but also threatening to divorce her? Something's wrong, the eldest daughter.in.law definitely can't do such a thing. She must have been possessed by something dirty. Coincidentally, the children passed by in front of her, and she grabbed Lu Xiaoti's wrist and asked mysteriously in a hoarse voice, "Xiaoti, did your mother bump into something? How long has she been like this?" Chapter 9. Go to the mistress's house for divorce in a grand and mighty manner. You are listening at novel full.audio. Lu Xiaoti's eyes darkened. Couldn't it be that his mother was so abnormal today? What did Grandma say about the collision? Her heart tightened, thinking that if that was really the case, she hoped that thing could control her mother for a lifetime. "I don't know," she said, breaking free from old Lu's hand and quickly following Meng Suisui's footsteps. Old Lu quickly took a few steps and stopped her granddaughters, asking, "Which of you is going to find Gong Daxian to show your mother?" Gong Daxian is a famous horse-riding immortal from 10 miles and 8 villages. If anyone's child is sick or disaster-stricken, ask her to see if they can recover. Boss Lu Xiaoti has been paying attention to the people behind her. When she saw her sisters being stopped by her grandmother, she didn't know what to do. She turned around and shouted loudly. "Why are you procrastinating? Hurry up." Everyone listened to the older sister's words, and the younger sisters quickly bypassed their grandmother one by one, running towards Lu Xiaoti. Noticing the attitude of her granddaughters towards her, old lady Lu became even more confused and angrily roared at her back, gritting her teeth. "What are these 2 guys doing? You little brats, wait for me, see if your mother will peel off your skin after she recovers." As soon as these words were spoken, all 6 girls walking ahead were frightened and their faces changed. "My mother has always listened to my grandmother the most. Maybe even if she doesn't peel her skin, she will beat them up hard." The old lady Lu behind her didn't care whether her granddaughters were afraid or not. After cursing, she changed her tone and gently said to Lu Qibao beside her. "Qibao, go find Gong Daxian and ask her to come quickly." Meng Suisui first went to find the village chief, and then walked with the village chief and his group towards the house of the widow Wang in a grand manner. Along the way, there were many good things that came along, followed by people who wanted to go see the excitement, and gossiped about her affairs behind her. "What? Are you going to the widow Wang's house to catch adultery? She has always been a shrinking turtle. What kind of evil wind is this today? Isn't that right?" I kindly reminded De Zhu and widow Wang before that they were not clear about each other. She also said that I was worried about eating salty carrots lightly, and it was because I liked her family's De Zhu that I spread rumors and instigated relationships. The big pillar is so lifeless that I don't want it for nothing, and only she treats the big pillar as a treasure. Have you heard that someone is rumoring that she is going to divorce De Zhu? Do you believe this? If she gets divorced, it will rain red rain in the sky. I don't believe it either. So what do you think she wants to do when she calls the village chief to go to widow Wang's house together? Who knows, but I heard someone saw her come out of the village chief's house this morning and asked the village chief's wife before they heard that she was going to divorce. Some miscellaneous words and gossip reached Meng Suisui's ears, but she completely ignored them. And she felt that although those people's mouths were a bit broken, what they said seemed to be nothing wrong, and their true selves were indeed what they said. In my memory, there was a time when my ex-husband brought Widow Wang home and asked her to lay bedding for him and Widow Wang. My ex didn't dare to put a single fart on them, and after laying the bedding, I had to sit in the yard to help keep it cool. My ex's completely bottomless behavior was disgusting. Not long after, Meng Suisui and her group arrived at the door of Widow Wang's house. Before she could call, Lu Zhu came out of the room with his bare arms. "Stinky woman, why are you bringing so many people here? Do you still want to be shameless? I'm not the one who caused a loss of personnel. What's so embarrassing about me?" Meng Suisui retorted casually. Lu Zhu was directly angered and cursed. "Who gave you the courage to talk to me like this? Let's see if I won't kill you today." Lu Zhu usually gets along well, cursing and rushing up to hit her. Meng Suisui did not expect Lu Zhu to dare to fight against her in front of the village chief. At this moment, the other party was coming fiercely, and she had no time to hide. At this moment, a person suddenly rushed over from the side and pushed her away. After receiving a punch for her, he pulled her behind him and lifted his arm to punch Lu Zhu in the face. Hiss! Lu Zhu clenched his face in pain. At the same time, the village chief and others all realized that a group of people came forward to separate the two and set a distance between them. Everything happened too suddenly, and when Meng Suisui realized it, she looked at the person protecting her with a surprised expression on her face. This person is her maternal younger brother, Meng Yufan. "Yufan, why are you here?" Ginseng secretly sold her mother's soybeans back in the day, causing her younger brother Meng Yufan to have no tuition and almost not be able to attend school. Ginseng almost ruined her brother's life, and it was precisely because of this that her mother had a falling out with her. In recent years, she has had no contact with her mother's family and never expected her younger brother to help her. "I heard you're getting divorced, let me see if I can help you." Meng Suisui's nose suddenly turned sour. She had once been so sorry to her mother's family, and she never imagined that if something really happened, her mother's family would have to help her. She raised her hand to touch the injury on her younger brother's chin and said, "Does it hurt?" My younger brother awkwardly blocked it with his hand and said, "It's okay." The village head mediated, and the two sides calmed down temporarily. Meng Suisui walked out from behind the village chief and calmly said, "I'm here to talk to you about divorce." "What? Divorce?" Lu Zhu looked incredulous and wanted to hit someone, but was pushed by Meng Yufan and temporarily calmed down. Meng Yufan used all his strength to punch him just now, and he dared not fight with Meng Yufan. Lu Zhu took a step back and pointed at her nose, shouting arrogantly, "What kind of evil wind are you? If I had known you were like this, I should have strangled you directly to prevent you from jumping in front of me." At this moment, Widow Wang put on her clothes and walked out with a twist. She walked behind Lu Zhu and asked in a moderate voice, "What's going on?" These two people have never avoided interacting with the villagers. Everyone knows that Widow Wang has put a green hat on Meng Suisui, and no one can bear this humiliation except for her original identity. Although the villagers knew they had an affair, when they saw Widow Wang and Lu Zhu standing face to face with Meng Suisui, they couldn't help but defend Meng Suisui. TSK, take a look at what Widow Wang looks like inside. The mistress is too arrogant. How shameless. Whispering could be heard in the crowd, and Widow Wang's face changed with embarrassment. Meng Suisui didn't give Widow Wang a glance and directly asked Lu Zhu, "Do you dare to divorce me?" With the village chief following and her younger brother supporting her, Meng Suisui felt that her waist had become much harder. Lu Zhu was stunned. How could he feel that Meng Suisui seemed to have changed a person? It seems like he really wants to divorce him, right? In a moment of daze, Widow Wang gave him a hard elbow and said, "What are you thinking? Leave her, we can be together without her." Lu Zhu's face suddenly changed, and he looked up at the people around him who were watching the excitement. He couldn't help but resent Meng Suisui for being a demon and causing him shame. Due to his lover being by his side, he gambled, joke, what can I be afraid of? Just leave, as long as you don't regret it. Chapter 10. Completing You. You are listening at novel full.audio. Okay, let's talk about how to divide divorce property now. Meng Suisui wanted this effect. She took out a piece of paper from her pocket, opened it in front of everyone, and handed it to the village chief. Village chief, this is my property. Could you please help us divide it? The village chief exchanged a glance with her, took the paper and glanced at it, then said in a deep voice. Since you both agree to divorce, let's talk about who the property will be given to. Your family now owns land for 9 people, all of which are grain fields allocated by the government to you for personal cultivation. The land will follow the people, and neither of you has any objections, right? Meng Suisui quickly spoke up and said, no. Lu Zhu, seeing Meng Suisui's lifeless demeanor, wished he could have punched someone to death. If it weren't for the village chief and the others, he would have already taken action. When would it be their turn for a little daughter-in-law to shout around in the old Lu family? Sensing everyone's gaze on him, the village chief asked, Big Pillar, speak up. I have no objection either, Lu Zhu said reluctantly, teasing his head. The village chief nodded and said, how are we going to divide the houses? Meng Suisui suggested, divide equally, give each person half of the room price if they want a house. Lu Zhu, who was originally squatting on the ground with frustration, rubbed himself up and said, I don't agree. I bought that house from our old Lu family when I got married, why should I share it with you? Meng Suisui refused to back down and said, this house was bought with my dowry money when you got married. If you give me the money, it's mine. If you spend my money on buying a house, of course this house belongs to me. The village chief saw that the 2 people were arguing incessantly and said in a voice, don't argue anymore. Just listen to me and have half of it. This way, it's more fair. The village chief has some prestige in the village, and everyone basically listens to what he says. As soon as these words were spoken, Meng Suisui and Lu Zhu both wilted. The village chief looked at Meng Suisui and asked, this house is too old. It's worth at most 800 yuan now. Do you want a house or money? Meng Suisui said, I can do anything, let him choose. Lu Zhu said, I want money. He can live with widow Wang, but if not, he can still make do with living with his parents. What he needs most now is money. Of course, he also had another purpose in asking for money. Meng Suisui had to spend 400 yuan to get divorced. He wanted to see where Meng Suisui went to find so much money. If she couldn't spend it, then the marriage wouldn't be possible. Meng Suisui readily agreed, I agree. Lu Zhu didn't expect her to agree so happily, so he quickly added, this money must be given to me immediately, otherwise I won't want a divorce. Sensing the village chief's gaze, Meng Suisui said in a low voice, fundraising takes time. I promised to gather the money for him within a month. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned. Meng Yufan was the first to react and held on to Meng Suisui's wrist, hating it for not turning into steel. Meng Suisui, are you crazy? Where did you gather so much money in a month? Even if you're angry and want to divorce quickly, can you keep your mind clear? After hearing this, Lu Zhu became even more proud and waved his hand, saying, you guys have a beautiful idea. A month is too long, and I don't agree. Didn't you want a divorce? Then immediately hand over the money to me. This is clearly a case of forcing others to do something difficult, and the village chief timely spoke up to ask Lu Zhu. How about this? Both of you take a step back and she can raise money for you within half a month, okay? Lu Zhu was certain that Meng Suisui would not be able to raise that much money in the short term, but for safety reasons, he still tried to shorten the time as much as possible. Uncle Wang, you've said that, so I'll give you face. At most, I need to see the money for a week, otherwise I won't talk. It's impossible to raise so much money in a week, even if we go to sell blood, there won't be enough time. Meng Yufan suddenly turned red with anger and pointed at Lu Zhu's nose, shouting, "Lu Zhu, don't go too far." The villagers who were watching the excitement around were also whispering. "We may not be able to raise so much money even if the whole village gathers for a week. Lu Zhuming is putting on a difficult show. Their family's meals are a problem, and a few girls are starving and shaking. It's ridiculous to have to raise so much money, isn't it?" "Not really, I don't think even Meng Suisui can take out this money for a week or even a year." The sound of discussion reached the ears, and the village chief sighed and looked at Meng Suisui, asking, "What do you think?" "A week is a bit short, but it's not impossible either." After half a moment of contemplation, Meng Suisui nodded and said, "Okay, that's only for a week." She actually agreed. Everyone thinks Meng Suisui is crazy. After all, no normal person would make such an outrageous decision. Meng Suisui saw that Meng Yufan was still trying to stop her, so she shook her head and gave her younger brother a wink. In a voice that only two people could hear, she said, "I have a plan in my heart, don't worry." Lu Zhu didn't expect Meng Suisui to dare to agree. He snapped out of shock and said, tearing his face apart, "Let's talk about it first. If the money doesn't reach me for a week, then the house will belong to me, and our divorce won't count." Meng Suisui nodded in agreement, thinking to herself that it was thanks to Lu Zhu underestimating her strength, otherwise the conversation would not have been so smooth. The village chief saw that they had reached an agreement and said, "Apart from these small pieces, pots, pans, and agricultural tools, do you also have half of them each?" Lu Zhu waved his hand and said, "I don't want anything. Let her convert my half into money and give it to me." Meng Suisui remained as cheerful as ever, "Sure." The village chief said, "Since these are all fine, let's talk about the issue of the ownership of these children." Lu Zhu said, "Children are the seeds of our old Lu family, I want them all." As soon as she said this, Widow Wang gave Lu Zhu a fierce glare. At the same time, several small shoulders in the crowd were trembling uncontrollably with fear. Especially after hearing Meng Suisui's words, she trembled even more. Meng Suisui said, "No, my son was born to me and must belong to me. I can give you 6 daughters." She often treats her youngest son like a sore eyeball, and everyone in the village knows that she values boys over girls. Therefore, when Meng Suisui says this, no one will doubt her intentions. As everyone knows, Lu Zhu naturally knows that he doesn't actually want a divorce in his heart, but Meng Suisui came with so many people, and he had to agree due to his face. Moreover, his lover was still watching by his side. If he didn't agree to the divorce, he couldn't explain it to his lover. He was certain that even if that 400 yuan couldn't stop Meng Suisui's idea of divorce, he could still use his youngest son to keep her. After all, he knew more than anyone how much Meng Suisui valued his youngest son. "My daughter can give it to you, but my son must belong to our old Lu family. If you don't agree, don't think about divorce." Lu Qibao went to find Gong Daxian just now. As soon as he ran over, he heard his parents vying for his custody. He immediately showed a fierce expression and rushed towards Meng Suisui's stomach. Sure enough, a woman doesn't have a good thing and dares to divorce her father. "I'll kill you." No one present expected Lu Qibao to be so excited, and Meng Suisui was unexpectedly knocked down to the ground. She felt as if her intestines had been broken by a collision, and it hurt her heart and lungs. She angrily said, "Lu Qibao, what are you doing?" As she spoke, she scanned her eyes and didn't see the figure of old Lu. It seemed that old Lu was still on the way and hadn't arrived yet. This little grudge was about to arrive first. There was a woman around who couldn't bear to watch the excitement and scolded. "Lu Qibao, your mother is so kind to you. How could you treat her like this? Now that your mother is going to divorce your father, you don't want your mother anymore." Lu Qibao looked like an angry little lion, shrugging his shoulders and saying fiercely, "No." She doesn't even want her father anymore. What do I need her to do? I don't want to suffer with you. I want to eat corn paste with my father and grandmother. This little son is really a good example, just like his father did when he hit someone. No matter what, Lu Qibao is also the biological flesh and blood of her original body. She didn't originally want to do too much, but now she is determined to draw a clear line with this little wolf cub. Meng Suisui stood up from the ground with the help of Meng Yufan's strength and sneered, "That's good. Since that's the case, I will fulfill your obligations as a whole, with the youngest son for you and the 6 daughters for me." Amidst everyone's longing to see ghosts, she calmly asked the village chief.